Howdy guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. Let's get right into this video. I know you guys want to know about essentially how the SSA looks to see whether or not people are using illegal drugs. And the bottom line is that they have a lot of different ways of finding out. And it's all coming down to this whole idea of a materiality element. Are these drugs material and causing your impairments to become severe? Severe to the point where they would normally approve you, but if you took away drugs, would you still be at that severely impaired level? Okay. Now, it's a different video than normal because we're doing it in the morning. And as you can see, I'm not a morning person. My face looks miserable. But with that said, let's go through essentially those ways in which the SSA can see whether or not you use illegal drugs. Now, keep in mind, I don't work for the SSA. I'm an attorney that works, basically with claimants to represent them before the SSA. However, these are the things that pop up in reports. These are the things that pique the interest of judges. These are the things that tend to pop up for illegal drugs. Let's get into it. Number one, notations of illegal drugs being used in your medical records. So a lot of people are very honest with their doctors, and they think that, their doctor will not say anything mean or negative about them in their reports, but that's not true. In the history area, in the analysis area, you'll often see, okay, claimant states that they will drink 6 beers a day. Claimant states that they used meth 3 days ago. Claimant states that they used crack cocaine 1 month ago. It'll be put in there because for medical purposes, it's important for them to understand where these emotional or physical problems are coming from. Number two, notation of illegal drugs being used in law enforcement reports. So let's say that you're panhandling, or let's say that basically you were driving in a very odd way and they either find drugs in you or on you and, or around you. That would end up in a report. The SSA would purchase that report, and then they would be able to access basically the details related to it. And they'd be able to see, okay, claimant was driving under the influence. This drug came up positive for cocaine, yada, yada. Okay. Number three, notation of illegal drugs being used in a penal report. Penal means like, prison. It means jail, stuff like that. So the whole idea here is that if you have a record where basically you are in jail and they catch some sort of drug on you, whether it was, brought in a certain way and you were the carrier, whether you're the one that's using it, etc., that'll end up in that report, which they can access. Okay. Number four, notation of illegal drugs being used in an academia report. So let's say that basically you were in a school, could be any school. The one around here that a lot of people go to is Valencia, but the bottom line is, let's say that you were in any school, right? And there was notation of you having drugs on campus, or a security guard had to deal with something related to you and drugs. In that instance, that would be a report that they could access to go ahead and know that you're using and abusing. Number five, field office rep or security guard senses drugs are present. So one of the things you have to know about these security guards and what's going on with them is that security guards often know what the smell of pot smells like. They're usually trained to know what that is. And okay, so let me just say this. Like there was once this lady who worked for the USPS, and let me just put it this way. When people smoke pot, they don't think that they smell. I mean, some of them know that they smell like pot, like marijuana, but many of them don't think that they smell. And let me put it to you this way. People who don't smoke pot, like I'm not allowed to smoke pot, for the most part because of the bar, unless I had, a medical reason and the card, but we can smell it on you. It's like somebody who smokes cigarettes. We can smell it on you. We know that if you smoke cigarettes, we know if you smoke pot, especially if you're like, level 10 Rastafarian level where you're doing it all the time. Like all the money you get goes directly into that. So this lady at USPS would always have that smell. And there's other individuals, who basically work for the federal government who have that smell to them. Everybody knows who those people are. It's just, it takes somebody who doesn't like that person to report that person. Now, of course, it's different now when it comes to marijuana because medical purposes and the federal government's not really trying to make a big deal out of it. So as a result, let's just call it like it is until it's made free and legal across the land. There's always going to be some people who are using it who are in federal positions or state positions, but in general government positions that are using it outside of what their job normally would allow. Now, with that said, these guards, they can smell it on people just the same. They know. And some of them know better than others. And the point is with this, they'll notate it in the file. This person was slurring their speech as if they were drunk. This person has the scent of marijuana on them, stuff like that. Okay. Another thing that they look for, if you have abnormal slurred speech, head dipping, or insufficient answering with consistent questions, right? They'll ask you a question, you'll answer it. They'll ask you another question, you'll answer it. They'll ask you the same question again, and you've given an improper answer every single time. But the slurred speech, the head dipping, the insufficient answering consistent with a drug low during an SSA personnel interaction, that's something that might go ahead and render some notation in the file. Number 7, extremely thin body with a gaunt, pinched face. So some of you guys don't know people who use and abuse drugs. So you wouldn't know, but some of you guys would see people who use and abuse drugs and be like, oh, I wonder. But people who work with those individuals who use and abuse drugs all the time, we know exactly what the physical signs on their face or their hands look like when they're using meth or cocaine or heroin or crack or whatever. So kind of the bottom line here is they know a lot of these signs as well. And one of the problems you run into with adjudications is that a judge may have a particular bias against an individual that they know obviously is using or potentially was using or potentially is using. But the point is they may have stopped. And then we have their testimony and they'll say, hey, I stopped 2 years ago. This is the reason I stopped using and abusing. And the whole point with that is the judge then has to go, do I trust this person that they're not going to use federal government funds, which you would argue are your funds for SSDI and retirement, obviously not for SSI. But the bottom line is, are you going to use those treasury checks to go ahead and buy illegal drugs? That's what they're worried about. Number 8, loss of teeth at a younger age without a dental medical condition that is consistent with your impairments. So a lot of you guys know that if you use and abuse drugs, right? If you use and abuse particular types of drugs, the ones that you smoke, or the ones that you inject into your gums, you're very likely to go ahead and lose your teeth. So if you don't have a medical condition for your teeth, but yet your teeth are gone, that's going to raise some eyebrows. Number 9, multiple arrests for theft or borrowing cars and not returning them on time. So when people have a drug problem, the main issue with the drug problem is that they need money. They're constantly trying to get money. They're constantly selling their stuff to get money to buy the drug because the drug just chemically changes their brain. And the high is just so magical, dragon flying all over the place that they need it, that they're willing to do anything to get it. And so as a result of that, kind of the bottom line, and that's the same thing with like a lot of STDs, stuff like that. They're doing whatever they can to go ahead and be able to get those drugs. So as a result of that, when you see a lot of theft, that means they've run out of resources of their own, and now they're stealing other people's stuff. When you see a borrowed car that's not returned on time, like a police report or something like that, that shows essentially the person was borrowing the car to do runs. Basically they go and, distribute drugs for some drug dealer. And then, that car that they went ahead and borrowed from somebody, they just didn't return on time. That's a classic sign that essentially a person, bottom line is a user and abuser. Because remember, a lot of the dealers use runners to go ahead and distribute drugs because the dealers don't want to get caught. So the dealers will be at a hotel room. The drugs will be with them. They'll distribute the drugs to essentially a runner, and the runner will go ahead and distribute the drugs. If the drugs get used by the runner, then the runner has a bad day. And that's kind of how the whole hierarchy goes. Okay, next one. Okay, right here, number 10, multiple evictions with accompanying court documents showing use and abuse. So what we're looking at here is, if you're evicted over and over and over again, right? You run into the problem where the court system is going to go ahead and look at that and say, hey, wait a minute, why does this person keep getting evicted? And if it's the party scene, the drugs are on the record, or drugs are found on the premises, and that's why the owner of the property or the manager of the property is very unhappy, that's going to pop up as well. Okay. Number 11, the neighbor reports to the SSA that you are using SSA funds to purchase illegal drugs. That does happen. Some of you will say, "How could they? How could the neighbor?" Neighbors don't give a shit. Neighbors don't give a shit. They basically just, um, to be fair, they basically just go ahead and do what they want to do. Okay, look, a lot of you guys make fun of like Karens. Those are the outspoken, don't give a shit neighbors. There's an entire list of names that we can come up with for the silent, don't give a shit neighbors. And they report disabled people left and right because let's call it like it is. What else are they going to do with their day? You know? Okay, number, let's see, 12, HOA reports that you have cars coming to your place of residence throughout the night. That popped up on one report. It wasn't directly linked to drugs, but I think the judge, or at least I could see in their face, was thinking and, had that like little side smirk spiel. Because remember, judges are very good at hiding their emotional context, but there are little hints where you can tell what's going on in the brain. So the bottom line is that when you have cars constantly coming in and out of your place at night, that is always a bad sign, especially if you're in an HOA. They just don't expect that kind of conduct. Okay. Number 13, the spouse reports that show drug abuse and use on the record, or perhaps you're going through some sort of child custody situation where the child court has it on record that the spouse is saying you use and abuse drugs and shouldn't have the child. That's another great place where basically they can collect evidence to show use and abuse. Okay? Number 14, significant spending of funds from an account over a short period of time without a proper accounting. So, look, everybody knows that drugs are not cheap, and everybody knows that a lot of celebrities, like, if you want to know who some of the richest drug dealers are in America, look at California and look at Hollywood and look at New York, New York City. Those are the richest drug dealers, that are inside the country. And the bottom line is that they have a lot of cash and they're liquid and they spend it and buy all these drugs, and they consistently do it because when they get hooked and they just blow through money, right? I'm not going to mention any celebrities specifically, but a lot of the child stars, a lot of the Disney kid stars, they get a lot of that, which is sad. It's very, very sad, but it's a lot of money quick as a young person. They make those dumb choices, and here we are, And I'm not saying people don't have fun in college. A lot of people have fun in college. A lot of people have a really good time in college, but when you have that much money, that do whatever you want money, it's different. You know what I mean? All right. Now, next one, 15, driving on a suspended license from a prior ticket related to erratic driving. So if you keep doing weird stuff with your car, they're going to eventually, suspend your license. And when they do that, basically it's a heads up to the judge as to like, okay, why is this person constantly getting tickets? Why is this person constantly erratically driving? What's going on here? The joke is that like, people who are drunk are very, very dangerous with cars. And that's very true. But the joke part of that is that people who are on marijuana are happy, slow drivers, which is also very true. But those who are on crack are the worst of both because they are all over the damn place. Okay, number 16, mailing in forms with a certain smell or substance present on them. So it is advisable because, remember the SSA, uses machines to scan and review documents that come in. So it is advisable that if you're going to use and abuse drugs, that you don't potentially include those drugs on the DDS forms or local field office forms or hearing office forms that you submit to the SSA. It is advisable that you pull back from whoopsing like that. Obviously having the smell of them, look, everybody knows that a lot of people who don't have significant funds, their cat always pees on the SSA forms. I've seen that many times. But when it comes to accidentally leaving some powder on the forms, that is a big no-no. It's a big no-no. All right. Number 17, losing drug paraphernalia in a local FO or OHO hearing office. So I had a claimant who basically lost their crack pipe in the local SSA field office. Now they left, and I don't think they ever figured out what happened at the SSA field office, but that also would be what's considered a very big no-no. You don't want to do that. It's just a bad idea. All right. Number 18, having burn holes in clothing that match that of the drug abuse. Because some of these some of these drugs, there's like a pipe that you smoke them out of, and that's the thing too. You have to understand some of these SSA personnel know what's going on. And I'm going to say this, and you guys are going to say, no way in hell. But please listen to me when I say this, because this is something a lot of people don't realize or think about. Some of these personnel have siblings who are hooked on drugs in a bad way. So they know what kind of drug uses what kind of device. They know what the burn marks look like on the clothing. They know. Okay. Next one, 19, having needle marks that are visible to the SSA staff. Again, some staff know what they look like, some don't. But the bottom line is, most of these users, they're going to go ahead and inject in between the toes. They're going to go ahead and inject in areas that you're not going to see. But remember, those areas tend to get infected. And so, there's signs with that too. Number 20, having tattoos that show gang, drug violence, or sex related, I guess you would call them business signs. Like, this is my gang sign. I'm in the business of the ganging of this. I'm in the drug, arena. Here are the drugs that I prefer. I'm in the violence arena. When you see that stuff, there is a tendency to go ahead and ask the question of, why did this person get this tattooed on their body? How does this relate to their current activity? Are they an enforcer for collecting money for drugs that were distributed by some other person? 21, direct express card payments to known dealers. That is usually a no-no. Once again, direct express card payments to known dealers is usually a no-no. And here's the thing. The SSA can look up your bank accounts like within 15 to 30 seconds. So the point is, when you look at this whole structural situation, you have to understand that if there are payments or things that you do that create the questioning of it, right? Then that's not a good thing. And I guess maybe I could do a whole video just on that one, like, because people are like, well, how would the money that I go ahead and pay be considered blah, 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 blah. So let's say that you have a Cash App account and you are Cash Apping from the account that the SSA deposits the funds into, and you're Cash Apping directly to a person who's a known runner or a known dealer or a known distributor or a known whatever. It's not like you're Cash Apping to like, Hugo, whatever, over in Mexico, who's, got the plane filled with the drugs. You're sending it over to a local criminal who basically has a habit of distributing. And a lot of you guys think you're so smart and so brilliant that, when you're like, hey, I'm buying it from this young kid and this young kid doesn't have any charges against him. None of these young kids make it past 3 years without a charge on them. Like, none of them. This just never happens. If they continuously and repetitively distribute drugs, they don't make it 3 years without a charge. It's just how it is. So, and remember, all of that is backtrackable. They look at, okay, who's this person paying this person over this period of time? That's all traceable. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is content that you will literally find nowhere else on the internet. This is for supplemental security income benefits, Social Security disability insurance benefits. This is for basically the receipt of benefits and essentially potential attachment to issues of you purchasing drugs. Or it could be even just you receiving drugs. They do have the ability to go ahead and search text messages. They can go through that so long as they have the proper legal documentation. They can trace phone calls and do those details. But for the purposes of disability benefits, you would only see that level of investigation, usually with CDI units, whereas these things are more along the line of what judges are going to be looking at. Okay. All right, guys, I will catch you a little bit later. I'm going to be doing one more video. And then basically I have to pop out of here and get on phone calls. So I will catch you a little bit later, and I will see you in the not too distant future. But please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review. I like the 5-star reviews. On Google, you go to Google, you type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida, and you leave a review there, and I'd super appreciate it. If it was a 5-star, if not, it's okay too, but I always appreciate the 5 stars. I will catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.